Well, good afternoon. This is Wayne Albright, and I'm getting on this Friday afternoon, January 30th, to detail or discuss the weather for the period Saturday, this weekend, Saturday, January 31st, into next week or through next week, and possibly mention a little bit into the middle of February. We've got a pretty significant event coming, mainly for areas that didn't get affected by the event this past weekend with the heavy snow and ice and conditions like that. This one's going to be more of a southern storm, and that will be creating impacts of significance across the Carolinas, portions of southern southeast Virginia, and down into South Carolina over the weekend. So the highlights are these. A severe winter storm is likely to affect southern southeast Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and the adjacent coastal waters Saturday into Sunday morning. The highest impacts look to be Saturday afternoon into early Sunday morning. Major impact event with snow and very gusty north winds and very cold temperatures accompanying the storm and behind the storm. The highest accumulations of snow expected in western North Carolina and South Carolina to the coast and include portions of Hampton Roads in Virginia. Scattered power outages look to be a concern, especially at the coast with the gusty winds, and that will be an issue potentially, I think. And coastal flooding is also a possibility, minor to moderate for the most part. Very cold weather follows Sunday. The storm on Sunday follows it on Sunday and Monday, and then some slight moderation Tuesday through Wednesday, although a weak system passes by to the south of the right to the south of the area during the midweek period. So I will start with the longer term real quick. Anybody that thinks that the cold weather is going away anytime soon, and they were wrong. Unfortunately, if you don't like the cold, like me, it's hibernation period. And it's turned into a glacier as well with all the ice that is lingering. I think Virginia or VDOT or someone labeled it snowcrete. It is extremely hazardous to walk out there on this stuff and drive if there are not cleared areas. So be very careful about it, and it's not going to go anywhere. The cold only intensifies into early next week. So melting is not in any hurry to come, and even if it moderates the middle of next week, it's probably not going to melt a lot. So that's unfortunate, but I guess we have to deal with it. The MJO that I like to talk about is stuck in phase 7. Phase 7, I will remind, is not really a cold pattern. I mean, this is January, February, March. It's not really, but it's toward the 8 phase. So it's in 7, sort of 8. So, but we're not in the 4, 5, and 6 where it's the warmer patterns, or it's supposed to be. We kind of squashed that this last time when we were in phase 6, and certainly wasn't too warm out there. But anyway, it's trending toward phase 8 and weakening as we head through this weekend into early next week. As you can see from these charts right here, the forecast is generally to weaken in phase 7 into 8 into next week and potentially make the round here toward the end of the month of February and toward March. So we'll see if that actually happens, but I'm not confident of that. We go to the NAO index. I've said the negative is the cold phase, or the colder phase, or favors colder weather in the east. Positive PNA favors colder weather in the east. Both in tandem have brought the cold air. Does relax a little bit early next week toward neutral in the NAO, or 0, and it does relax a little bit in the PNA, but then it comes right back later next week into the part of the following week with still the PNA positive. So there's really no sign that really warm weather is coming anytime soon, or real significant period of warming or moderating. But there could be a little bit middle of next week, um, and maybe some signs toward the middle of the month. We'll see. But anyway, the cold air is not going anywhere. So we go on with what's happening now. This afternoon, we have a weak system passing through Tennessee, Kentucky, southwestern Virginia, spreading some light snow. Temperatures are at or below freezing from northern North Carolina all the way through New England to the north, northwest to the Ohio Valley, Midwest, and Great Lakes. And that's been the general flavor for the entire winter, with a northwest flow being the dominant flow. It did relax a little bit right before Christmas and into the middle of January. Gave us a little bit of a break, but it's intensified again, and we're back to episodes of colder air coming into the region, and that looks to be continuing at least for the next 2 weeks for the most part. But like I said, there'll be some slight weakening of the overall pattern, less amplified pattern. Does give us a chance to moderate a little bit going forward when we can see that on some of these charts here. It does moderate a little bit in the middle of next week. Cold air comes back, like I said, toward next weekend, and then maybe into the next week. The second week of February, we do get a little bit of better moderation, but I'm not sure about that at this point. I'll believe it when I see it. So take it one day at a time. So anyway, I think I didn't show that, so I'll show it again. There it is, middle of next week. Colder again by next weekend, again, and then moderation toward the second week of February. Same thing in Baltimore, same trend. So can't get too excited about really mild weather just yet. So anyway, back to today. We have our system here passing through this area: Tennessee, North Carolina, Southwest Virginia, Kentucky. We do have a second piece back here in the Midwest, diving to the southeast, and that will be the main storm maker as it heads way south into the southeastern states over the weekend. There's a weak low in northwest Georgia now, responsible for this area of precipitation. And we have a secondary low over here off the coast of Georgia. And this second area back here to the northwest is ready to dive to the southeast. So that when we look at where we are, I have to go back here. This is where we are today, this morning into this afternoon. We do have a weak system coming across. Right there it is. In the upper levels, this is 500 millibars, around 25,000 feet. We have the secondary system diving through the western lakes and Midwest. And that's the main energizer for the storm as it dives to the southeast tonight. Goes down across Georgia on Saturday and really intensifies off the coast by Sunday morning, and then moves out to sea. With storms like these, or with any significant event, meteorologists like to use analogs and compare them to potential storms of the past. Well, I did that, or we have done. I'm sure other meteorologists have done it. But this storm has been analoging the same storm as the top analog for several days, and it's the March 1980 blizzard in eastern North Carolina, far southeastern Virginia, and it was known as the Circus Blizzard. I think if I understand the story, it canceled the circus at that time. But back on March 3rd, or 1st through 3rd of 1980, and this is what the snow from that analog looked like, and it did have heavy snow, southeast Virginia, eastern North Carolina. It had a second area of snow back toward the mountains. Now, it's not going to be exactly like this, but it gives us confidence in how we're looking at this when it does analog with a significant storm from the past. So we can get impacts off of this and relate it to what it may be for this storm using these tools. So that storm back then looks pretty similar to this one that's going on now. Had a sharp system diving to the south through the Midwest. Has a weak system at the surface going through the Tennessee Valley, Alabama, Georgia, along the Gulf Coast. Again, systems aren't exactly the same, so you're not going to match 1980 and 2026, but you're going to look at the overall pattern and see how it evolved and get an idea of what potential impacts could be if a similar event were to occur. So this is leading into it, and you see storm developing off the coast. Back then, strong upper level system passing through the Tennessee Valley, just like this one is forecast to do. If we move forward a day, it really gets going. That Monday, March 3rd, strong low east of the Carolinas, upper level system. Look at that, almost in the same position, and the surface low pretty similar to what we've seen with this and how it evolved. So there are similarities to that storm, and it analogs very well to that storm, and it's been doing so for the last few days. And I've noticed, or you should notice, that there's been increased confidence from local meteorologists and the National Weather Service, WPC, and things like Weather Prediction Center on the storm evolving. Now there are, like I said, subtle differences in models and this storm versus that storm and things like that. But it's giving a pretty good impression or an idea of what we may be dealing with this weekend. So if we go to the surface and watch how it evolves, we're here now, weak system in the south, Alabama, Georgia, a little bit of snow up into Tennessee, Kentucky, southwest Virginia, gradually heads to the east tonight. Some snow tries to make it to the 95 corridor in Virginia and North Carolina. How much snow there is uncertain, but it's most likely light snow with very light accumulations. The bulk of the accumulation will be out toward the mountains and the foothills out here in western North Carolina and southwestern Virginia. And as we head through Saturday, the storm does get its act together, starts developing along the coast, so there's a transfer of energy to the coast as the upper level system right here, as I'm circling it, heads into Georgia, and it gets going and snows all the way down past South Carolina, all the way up to Maryland and back into Richmond. But a lot of the snow should consolidate at the coast Saturday night. So for accumulations in between, like Richmond, Raleigh, Greensboro, maybe not Greensboro, but Richmond, Raleigh, and that corridor, will be dependent on how much snow happens at the beginning, or let's say into Saturday afternoon, then how much is thrown back as the storm goes to the coast, generally thinking that there will be lighter accumulations in that corridor of central Virginia down into central North Carolina, with heavier accumulations to the east and heavier and higher accumulations to the west. So you can see how that evolves in that way as the initial system does its bit into Saturday or through Saturday morning, and then the coastal storm takes over Saturday afternoon and evening and continues Saturday night into early Sunday. And look at that on Sunday morning. There it is. And if you go back to March of 1980, there it is. Pretty similar. Not saying there's going to be exact conditions, but that was a significant storm and had these accumulations. Oceana, Virginia, 19 inches. Norfolk, 13.7. Elizabeth City, North Carolina, 18 inches. Raleigh, 12 inches. And Richmond, Virginia, 13 inches. Not saying they're going to be that high, but I wouldn't be surprised somewhere does get over a foot of snow. The favored place probably is eastern North Carolina somewhere out of this event. Along with the wind, and like I said, the wind's going to be quite strong out of the north Gusts over 40, 50 miles an hour at the coast, over 25 to 35 miles an hour farther inland for a little time, but the coast is really going to have the strongest winds for the longest time. And they will gradually come down after it's windy on Sunday and the cold air really charges south all the way down to South Florida. And sub-zero wind chills late Sunday into Monday across a large section of the east. Not down, it won't get down below zero, I don't think so, in Florida, but maybe down as far south as South Carolina, and definitely up in the north, Midwest, the Great Lakes, here in the Mid-Atlantic, and up into New England. Wind chills Sunday night below zero, most likely as the wind stays up. We head into early next week, stays cold Monday, and then there's some slight moderation by Tuesday. And then there's our weak little system on Wednesday. Not a lot of moisture with it. What's missing from this overall pattern is southern stream moisture at this time. There was a southern stream influence to the last storm, and there was quite significant amounts of precipitation that occurred and led to a big ice storm and hefty snow amounts across the north, and some significant ice in the south. So this storm, this one in the middle of the week, next week, does not have that, and this storm coming up this weekend doesn't have that either. So those are differences that have occurred and taking place. So that system goes off. A recharge of cold air late next weekend. Clipper comes in next weekend, brings back more cold air. And then maybe toward the middle of the month, second week of February, we do have a moderating trend that's a little more serious. But we'll see about that down the road. Again, I pointed this out earlier. It is showing that in the far extended. I use them with a grain of salt at this point, and how cold and how much warming there would be. But you can see the roller coaster until then. So let's go through the accumulations here. We'll start with the European, heavier snow to the east, heavier snow to the west, a little bit of a lull in the middle. You'll see this as a common theme on these models. In GFS, a little more snow in the interior of North Carolina, but heavy snow toward the coast, heavier snow back toward the mountains. We go to a German model. This one seems to favor the middle more than the coast. I'm not sure that's correct. For the longest time, it was showing the opposite, and now it's changed to this today. Is it catching on to something? I don't know. But it's something to keep in the back of your mind. And then you have the UK Met model, which is generally along the lines of the others. I'll go to a high-res model, the HER, and really heavy snow at the coast, and then trends back toward the mountains. So you can see this bend is common on the models. Not a lot of snow from central Virginia and no snow to the north. So that's what it's looking like on the models. Let's look at the National Weather Service's blend here, what they'll probably go with this afternoon. An evening forecast, heavy snow along the coast, not quite as much up into southeast Virginia as I would have anticipated, and then it trends back toward Charlotte and portions of South Carolina into the mountains. And you can see there's a little bend here of a little less snow in the interior, which is what I was talking about. So to end this, let's go back. I will go to what I'm thinking here. You can see the corridor in yellow, 1 to 3 inches potentially. Wind gusts 20 to 30 miles an hour, 30 plus at the coast, more like 20 to 25 most of the time farther inland. And you see the orange here down from Tri-Cities of Virginia, Wakefield, Raleigh, Charlotte, southwest of Roanoke, maybe Williamsburg, 2 to 5 inches, wind gusts to 30 plus miles an hour, and some, but there might be a little bit higher snow, Charlotte, Asheville, out into the mountains of western North Carolina. And the sweet spot, it looks like, is far southeast Virginia, eastern North Carolina, 6 to 12 inches. Could be some spots with higher than that. We'll see how this evolves. I don't think it's going to get to the scale of 1980. Never say never, but right now 6 to 12 inches looks like a good forecast. Wind gusts 40 to 50 plus miles an hour, and that's the possible whiteout conditions and power outages. Would be generally concentrated in this corridor down here. Storm warnings for the coast and minor to moderate coastal flooding, as I'll show you some of that here. Minor to moderate. Here's Sewell's Point, Virginia, touching moderate, minor at or some action toward minor stage in Jamestown, Virginia. Lynn Haven Parkway, major. That's right along the bay there in Virginia Beach. Down toward North Carolina, Duck is in the major category, and so is the Sound. So the higher tidal departures and coastal flooding look to be on the Outer Banks down here in North Carolina. So, but minor to moderate all the way from the Virginia Eastern Shore down through eastern North Carolina for the most part. And there might be some major, see how that pans out. And that would be Sunday morning with that high tide, but the tides do increase a little bit over the weekend before then. So that's it for this broadcast. I want everybody to be safe this weekend. Just hang in there. We're closer to March 1st and spring than we were last week. So those hoping for that, at least that's a better news. But I wish I had better news as far as that goes for warmer weather fans. But it is winter, and we'll take it as it goes. So on the winter storm scale, we are definitely in the attention this weekend. But again, north of Richmond, up into New England, up into Pennsylvania, the Great Lakes, and the Ohio Valley, you're spared this one this time. Although I should mention, I think coastal, maybe Cape Cod, that tip up here in far southeastern New England may get clipped by it. But the predominant flavor across that region, like I said, northern mid-Atlantic, north of Richmond, New England, Pennsylvania, Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, we'll just have a very cold and dry weekend. So everybody try to enjoy the weekend. Be safe. We will get rid of this snow eventually and ice. So for those in the winter storm impact area, be safe. It's going to be looks like a pretty significant storm coming. So, and it's in an area that's not used to a lot of this type of weather. So really, it will be a high impact event in these areas this weekend. All right, I will talk to you next time.